Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for the Florida Bar Alternative Dispute Resolution's inaugural Lunch and Learn webinar. New year and new mediation practice, setting yourself up for growth with our wonderful presenter, Susan Guthrie. This is an incredible presentation that will be sure to jumpstart your practice in 2026. My name is Christina Blunt, and I am moderating this webinar today for the Alternative Dispute Resolution section, of which I'm a member of the CLE committee. If you are not a member of the ADR section, I encourage you to join this dynamic group. Our membership is comprised of mediators, arbitrators, and attorneys who participate in various forms of dispute resolution. Our section offers valuable resources and networking opportunities with others who are leaders in the field of ADR. Just a couple quick housekeeping matters before we get started. Please note that this webinar is being recorded and will be posted on the ADR section's YouTube channel should you wish to watch it again or if you have to leave early. Please remember to mute yourself if you're not already muted. Thank you to those of you who have provided questions during our registration process. Some of those questions will be addressed today during Ms. Guthrie's presentation. But if you wish to ask questions of the speaker or need technical assistance, please enter your questions into the chat. Your questions will be answered either as time allows or at the end of the presentation if there is time. This program does qualify for CME credit, which is self-reporting for the purposes of mediator certification renewal. Now, I'd like to take a quick moment to introduce our presenter, the fabulous Susan Guthrie. Susan Guthrie is a nationally recognized attorney, mediator, trainer, and practice strategist with more than 30 years of experience helping legal and dispute resolution professionals build thriving, profitable, and sustainable practices. As the immediate past chair of the American Bar Association's section of dispute resolution, Susan has been a leading voice for innovation in mediation, legal technology, and professional development. She is the creator of the Practice Playbook series and the Practice Accelerator, as well as a best-selling author and award-winning podcaster whose shows have reached millions of listeners worldwide. Through her workshops, programs, and consulting, Susan empowers professionals to find clarity, confidence, and success in their practices by embracing strategy, technology, and purpose-driven growth. Thanks so much for coming, Susan.
Thank you for having me. Well, Happy New Year, everyone. This is so exciting. I see so many people I know on the screen. This is such a fun way to start the new year for me. This is the first program I am doing in 2026. So thank you for having me, Christina and Megan. It has been wonderful working with you to get this program pulled together. And I love that it's your first lunch and learn of the year. So I'm going to dive in. I have a lot to share with you. I want to thank all of you who sent in questions in advance. Two reasons why I'm so delighted you did that. One, they were fantastic questions, and two, they let me know that the program I was putting together was on point because a lot of what I was covering in the program sort of met the needs of the questions. So just at a high level, I have worked some of your questions into areas in the program where what I'm talking about sort of answers as many of those questions as possible. And then if there's time at the end, I'll answer questions all day, every day. I love answering questions and trying to give a little clarity. So if there's time, we'll definitely take more questions. But again, delighted to be here with you today to talk about New Year, new practice, or maybe a little bit different practice or enhanced practice, and how to set yourselves up for growth in this new year. And I'm delighted to see so many of you signed up for this and attending. I bet a lot of you are in that phase of the new year where it's, New Year's resolutions. This is the year I'm going to get on top of this, or I'm going to make some changes, or I'm going to, do something that is going to take what I'm already doing and make it even better. And so this program is very much centered on helping you all, no matter what stage in your practice that you might be. I know from some of the names and faces I just saw on the screen that we have a wide range of practice backgrounds here of people who are earlier in their career and later, or who have more time spent in the field. So I'm hoping there's something for everyone in here because I've really tried to go broad on this, but give real, practical, of the moment things that you can do so that when you leave here, I try to leave you with things like, this is what I'm going to do tomorrow or on Monday when I come back to work after seeing this program. And just one last thing that I want to point out for everyone, if you're wondering, I've moved my practice now after 35 years into supporting professionals in building their practices. But please know that for the first 30 plus years, I was the same as all of you. I was a practitioner. I was a family law attorney for a number of years. Then I was a family law attorney and mediator. And then I was a mediator. I think total of about 32 years in the field doing the work. So, and I ran several different and started several different practices of my own in different locations, in different formats, in different ways. And this is all based on what I had to learn on the fly or learn myself, because it's really hard to find a place where, as dispute resolution professionals, we can go and get real practical on-point advice for ADR on how we can build a practice. So that's what this is focused on. All right, let's dive in. All right, well, okay, come on. Go ahead. All right, first thing, everybody always asks, can we get the materials? So always the second slide in my programs is the materials slide. You can use the QR code, or you can just go to my website. I've set up a page on the website called FL-ADR, and it has 4 downloads for you. One is the slide handout, and then the 3 others are worksheets that are going to walk you through how you can apply the principles I'm going to talk about to your individual practice. So they're the homework phase. But that's the practical aspect, right? I can come here and talk about these high-level ideas. I want you to actually be able to apply them. So if you have a chance, I strongly urge you to download the materials. They're geared to support you in taking what we're talking about today to the next level. All right. I've told you a little bit about me. You've heard probably more than you want to know about me. What I'd like to know is a few things about you. It helps me to know I know many of you out there. As I said, I recognized a number of names and faces out in the audience, but let me just ask a few questions and you can just raise your hands. We'll do this very quickly, but let's say, how many of you identify as entrepreneurs? Running a business? Me, for sure. Right? Okay. Good solid number of, they're popping up now. I love the people who use the online hand. All right. Going beyond that, how many of you are solopreneurs? Like you're doing it. You're doing it you may have an assistant, but for the most part, you're the chief cook and bottle washer. I'll tell you, as ADR professionals, that is the number one format that we tend to operate within, where we are the chief cook and bottle washer. Solopreneurs, although I think we're seeing a shift, I will say, just from my standpoint as a consultant in the industry, we are seeing a shift and more private equity coming in to having those mid-sized firms and pulling together. There's a lot of positives to that, but by and large, the way we've been operating is as solopreneurs. How many of you want to grow your practice in this coming year? I'm assuming that's why 100 plus of you are here, right? So that's me too. I want to grow my practice. Oh, Christine, I love the thumbs up. Thank you very much. I love the floating thumbs up. And here's the critical question. First, go ahead and take your hands down because I want to see the answer to this one. I want to know. How many of you right now have a strategic plan to achieve that growth in the year 2026? Sean does, Judy, Ty, Marianne, Christina. Good. All right. So you guys have come up with an actual plan on how you're going to achieve growth. That's great for the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people I see that have it up, right? But most of us don't have a plan. And that's what I want to give you are some basics of how to have a plan as you go forward into 2026 to achieve that growth. Because I'll be honest with you all, a little dash of magic here, a little dash of hard work there, that's not really going to get it done. The slapdash method isn't really designed to get you where you want to go. I've always said, Benjamin Franklin said, when you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And in business planning, that couldn't be more true. So we'll be talking about how you can build a strategy to achieve that growth as you move through this year or any phase in your practice. So what I've done is pulled together sort of three things that are fundamentally a problem for growth in our profession. And I pulled this from research. I've pulled this from the hundreds of professionals that I work with. I've pulled this from my 35 plus years of being a practitioner with a variety of different businesses, right? I've pulled this from a lot of different areas. And these are the three where, and not all of these may apply to all of you, but look for the ones that resonate with what's happening in your practice. So first, professionals lack clear positioning in the field. We were just talking before we jumped on here about the fact that COVID and the pandemic was actually, it's hard to say it was a good thing, but for dispute resolution, in some ways, it was a really good thing because we were the only game in town. And so a lot of people who would never have tried mediation, arbitration, ombudsman, whatever it might be that they tried, they did try it. And guess what, Mikey? They liked it. By and large, they were like, we should have been doing this before now. And that's great, right? More people, they keep coming back. But also what happened was our colleagues said, hey, that's a pretty good way to make a living as well. I think I want to try to do that. And so a lot of people added dispute resolution services to their portfolio or made the transition over from other fields. So we have a huge number of practitioners, and each one of us needs to have our position in that field very clear. And that's what most professionals are lacking. Second, if you follow me at all on like LinkedIn or the podcasts or any of those things, you know, I have a thing about pricing and the hourly billing pricing that we all mostly follow. Most practitioners are relying on pricing models that actually undermine their sustainability. And so we need to be looking at how we make the money that we're relying on. Making money isn't the only reason why we do what we do, but a lot of us do it to make a living, to keep the lights on, to pay the mortgage, to put the kids in college, whatever those reasons might be. And finally, so professionals who are struggling approach promotion reactively instead of strategically. And when I talk about strategy, I mean they don't have a plan about what their promotion is going to look like. They'll post on LinkedIn every single day, and that's their strategy. Well, I post every day. But they're not looking at what are they posting, who are they talking to, what are they trying to achieve by doing that. So you need the strategy beyond just the reactive, oh, I should be doing this. So this is what we're going to talk about. And if you notice there, I'm a big fan of trying to come up with ways where we can remember things. I love alliteration and acronyms, but this one I went with alliteration. There are 3 P's of a profitable practice: positioning, pricing, and promotion. And the key to growing your practice is having clear strategies for each. And that's the plan that I'm talking about and asked you if you had. So if you already have a plan, be looking at some of the things that we're talking about today and how you might tweak your plan. Plans are not static. Plans grow and change as your practice grows and changes. And if you don't have a plan, these are the 3 pillars you can start with so that you can go forward from today to start building that strategic plan for how you're going to move forward. All right, so the program, just at a high level, is we're going to break through these 3 mindset blocks and strategy barriers that are keeping most of us from failing to grow by discussing positioning first. And that is how you define your practice and how you present it to others. How you define your practice and how you present it to others. It's the key to not chasing clients, not having to take anyone who walks through the door, but how you attract the right clients. Then we'll talk about that profitability. We're going to rethink your revenue. And that's exploring some of the most common pricing mistakes that pros make. Clearly, I've already hinted that one of them is hourly billing in some cases, not all, but what you can do instead. And then promotion, which is your visibility, how people know you're out there. You can be the best mediator, arbitrator, anything in the world, but if nobody knows you're there and what you do, then you're not attracting anyone, and you're not going to, as one of my colleagues in Texas loves to say, get butts in your seats. She always says it that way. I love it. But right, you need to have someone to mediate for in order to be a growing mediator with a growing practice. So we're going to talk, that's your marketing. We're going to talk about some marketing strategies. And I focus on thought leadership because I think it's the easiest way to market. So we're going to talk about those all. So let's just dive in to positioning. And positioning is, I said this earlier, but let's hone in on it. It is how you define your practice, present your practice, and differentiate your practice. And what that leads to when you're able to do that is the right clients understanding why you're valuable to them. Right? So that you're not throwing that broad net, catching all the wrong kind of fish. And it's really all about your brand. And I know that sounds like a marketing buzzword. It is. But most of us don't understand what our brand is. And it's really your definition, your presentation, and your differentiation of your practice. And it's focused on outward, on who your clients are, not on who you are. So positioning, or your brand, is a combination of clarity on why you and your differentiation from others in the field. So how you define, present, and differentiate your practice. How are you different from the 100 other mediators in your area who handle construction matters? I'm just going to pick that one. Or how are you different from the other family law attorney or mediators or arbitrators or attorneys, if we have attorneys in the crowd here, right? How do you differentiate yourself? And I love it from the picture of the Fanta and the Coca-Cola. Does anybody remember Fanta even? But yes, these are actually similar in a lot of ways. They're both sodas or pops, depending. I'm here in the Midwest, so I still find it bizarre that people call it pop, but it's a pop, it's a soda pop, it's a soft drink. They both are. And they're both kind of old school. They've been around for a long time. Yet, if you've ever had both of them, you know how vastly different they are. And if you're looking for a sip of a delightful, fizzy Coca-Cola and you get a swig of a Fanta, you did not get what you wanted, and vice versa. And so part of that is, how many people out there are mediators? How many people out there are divorce mediators or construction mediators or employment mediators? If I were asking you to raise your hands on that, large numbers of hands would go up for each one of those. You're not differentiated by being that. It's what beyond that makes you different. Right? What beyond that makes you different? And then when you look at this, instead of looking at it through your own lens, never, ever, ever forget that you are service providers. And so the lens that you need to look at this through is through the client's eyes. What are they looking for that you can provide? Not what you think you want to talk about yourself. Right? What is their lens looking for? The easiest example that I can come up with, having been a family law practitioner for a very long time, is if you are speaking to people who are getting divorced, if that's your client pool, then you are going to have a different conversation with them than perhaps your colleagues who are attorneys looking to pick a mediator to handle their litigated case in a mediation. The attorneys who make the decision have a different lens that they look at through when they're picking the mediator than Mary and Jill or Bill and Bob or uh, Jim and Mary who are getting divorced. They have a different lens of what they're looking for. And it could be different. It's very different for each couple, it can be very different for the different attorneys. So that's where you start, if you see where you're different, what makes you different, and as it applies to the clients that you're looking for. And I will say, you may have more than one. Many of you, I mean, that example is a perfect one, right? Many mediators who handle family law matters take pro ses and get referrals from clients. So you need to know who you're talking to when you're differentiating yourself, right? So part of it is just understanding who your target audience is and how you're going to speak to them and what it is they want from you. And then your positioning, and that's you basically conveying your value to that particular group. When you're able to position yourself well, spotlight your value to them, what you bring to the table for them, that makes your value obvious, memorable, and credible to that particular client. So you are attracting the right client. A good example is the other day, somebody asked me for a referral to a divorce mediator. Having practiced in that area all the time, I get that sort of inquiry all the time. And they didn't tell me anything about what the case was actually about. And there's a huge difference. If we had a child with special needs, I would be sending them to a different mediator than if they had a very complex financial situation. So and that's because I know my colleagues out there and I know what sets them apart and makes them special. So your positioning is all about you having some clarity on the value you bring, how you're different, and who you bring that to, what they're looking for. And you don't need to understand, I want to say this throughout this program. You do not need to understand, I'm giving you the high level concept. The worksheets that I've given you are going to take your hand and walk you through how to do this for your practice. I can't do that in an hour with you all. So I took what I would do in a 3-hour workshop and I did the workshop part in the worksheets for you. So what we're getting here is the high level. So you don't need to know all the answers to this right now. What you need to do is start getting the concepts. Now, here's what I see with my clients and with colleagues and with those who are struggling in their positioning. This is where most go wrong. First off, and this is especially true for people who are starting a new practice, they go with generalism. I will take anything that comes through the door. I'm going to put every single solitary type of mediation or arbitration or case that I've ever handled in my entire life, and I'm going to put it on there. In fact, I have a new judge who's leaving the bench right now, and she's been on the bench for 25, 30 years. She's handled, you name it, she's handled it. And when she showed me her list of services as she's getting ready, it was literally every type of legal case you could possibly ever imagine. And so the problem with that generalism is it doesn't have the effect that you're hoping that it has. It actually makes you forgettable because you're so generic that they have no idea what value you bring to them. You're not speaking to anyone by being a generalist. That people tend to also really rely on buzzwords, our languaging, and our languaging can be a real problem when we are trying to convey our positioning. We will tend to go with messaging and jargon, buzzwords that we think are going to play. And again, this comes down to who are you talking to? Let me go back to my example of divorce attorney referrals and Bill and Mary who are getting divorced. Divorce attorney referrals may want to know that you understand the lingo because you were a practitioner, or if you weren't a practitioner, because you know it and you've gotten to know dissolution of marriage and marital settlement agreement and all of the nice words that we like to use. Bill and Mary aren't looking for that. Bill and Mary are looking for a divorce, not a dissolution of marriage. They want to get divorced. That's the word they're going to use. They actually want to go to mediation because they don't want attorneys involved in their case or overly involved in their case. So when you sound like an attorney and make it sound like a legal process, you're turning them off. You're using it because you think it shows you know what you're talking about. You're not talking to the right audience. You have to be thinking about your audience. Huge mistake. Your languaging matters a great deal. And then, I'm sorry, but we all do this one, credentialism. And this will again go to earlier career practitioners. I get this one all the time with, I've taken every training in the world. I've shadowed as much as I possibly can, but I'm just not quite ready to jump off the cliff and actually start mediating for myself or mediating on my own. Or there's just one more course I'm going to take or one more credential that I'm going to get, or I'm going to put myself out there in the world as a list of credentials. Credentials, we know, are people are impressed by them, but they're not actually what are going to get you hired. The value you bring to people is what is going to get you hired. That's a nice little sidebar, but they're not hiring generally a resume. They're hiring the value you bring to them. So these are generally those three big mistakes that we make when it comes to our positioning, knowing our niche. You are not your credentials in your niche, knowing your brand. Your credentials are not your brand. The fact that you're a Harvard trained mediator because you went to Pond, that is not your brand. Who are you? What type of matters do you handle? What burning pain point do you solve for your ideal client? That's your brand. Oops, sorry, let me back it up. All right, so how to do it right. What is the positioning that does connect with the right clients and converts them into actual paying clients? The first thing you need to do is sit down, and there's an exercise to do, and it's in the handout. You need to know who your ideal client is, who you serve best. And I will say again, most of you are going to have more than one. Unless you are super niched and can bring in enough business in that one particular very dedicated niche, then you're probably going to have more than one client. Back to my example of the divorce practitioner, right? They get referrals. That's one ideal client pool. That's B2B. And then there's the B2C, the clients who are Bill and Mary who are getting divorced. So you need to know, though, you need to know them pretty intimately. You need to know what they're looking for, what their pain points are, what they're worried about, and then how you have value to them because of those pain points. How do you solve those problems for them? And you have to put that value, you have to express your value to them in their language, not in that legalese, unless it's a legal audience. But you need to be able to communicate your value to that ideal client. Because understand, when you talk to them, they hear you and then they come to you. That's attraction. You're saying, I understand what you're worried about. And here's how I'm going to help you with that. Here's how I'm the one who can help you with that. And you highlight what makes you different. And this is where your special approach or the results that you achieve or the training that you have to help in this or the fact that you've done something for 30 years or that you were, I have one client that I just started working with who was a federal mediator, or I'm sorry, a federal attorney in the federal system for immigration for 30 years. She's lost her job recently. And so now she wants to go into mediation. But guess what? There's not a lot of mediation in immigration matters. Right? So she's like, how do I take my past, Susan, and translate this into a niche? Well, what we've realized is what makes her different is one, she has enormous cultural competency, enormous, because she has worked with clients from every background around the world. Because, she's just had a plethora of clients. So she has enormous cultural competency, and she has cultural competency in immigration matters as they apply to other matters. Family law matters have immigration matters that come up all the time. Labor and employment has immigration matters that come up all the time. So she is working to define her niche as culturally competent and immigration competent as it applies to these other areas. I just share that as one idea of where her particular area did not lend itself to niching in mediation, particularly doing immigration mediation, perhaps. But that does not mean it does not translate. You just have to find the value that you bring. That is her value. And then you want to, when you understand these factors, who you're talking to, what your value is, and how you are different from the 50,000 other people who do what you do, you need to convey that and be consistent across all of your channels. So your website, your LinkedIn, your marketing, when you go to a bar event and shake a hand of a new person and someone says, "So what do you do?" Your elevator pitch. Again, you doing the work on figuring all of this out is what the worksheet's going to walk you through. All right, so I mentioned earlier, and Christina did as well, you all were wonderful and sent in questions ahead of time. So I went through, and if I answered all of the questions, this program just would have been an Ask Susan Everything. There were so many wonderful questions. We could have just done Q&A for the whole time. And I'll set up a Q&A, an Ask Susan Anything in the near future, because it looks like it's time to do one. But I went through and I sort of, for each thing that we're talking about, or 3 Ps, I've picked 2 questions that covered as much ground as possible about what we're talking about here to answer that. So the first question was, hey, I moved to the other end of the state where the dots are because it was too long to get it all in here, but I've been going to a lot of bar association functions. I've been shaking a lot of hands, yet I still feel like a stranger in a strange land. Well, I can understand that. Florida, if you move from one end of Florida to another end, that might be like moving across, Europe. It's a huge state. What steps can I take to increase my availability for my new colleagues to mediate or arbitrate their cases? Well, let me be clear. What are we talking about? We are talking about your positioning, right? You're in a new market, or you're feeling like you're in a new market. And how are you going to position yourself more clearly to these new colleagues? So it's exactly what we've been talking about, because they don't know, your new colleagues don't need to just know that you exist. And they don't need to know that you're a mediator or an arbitrator only, because that doesn't tell them anything about what it is that you're looking for as clients, as support, what value you bring. It's really giving them nothing to work with. They need to quickly understand who you serve best and what types of cases you're known for, not just that you're a mediator. So it goes back to the same things I was just talking about. You need to be able to, in a short, quick elevator pitch, which the worksheet's going to walk you through creating, spoiler alert, but to be able to share with them when you're shaking that hand, when you're talking about what you do, so that you very clearly and quickly can define for them what it is as you are saying hello. And I'm talking about it in the context of a bar meeting or an event in this, because that was the question. But this is when you're on LinkedIn. This is when you introduce yourself when you're giving a program. This is, you need to let people know what it is that you do very quickly and the value that you're bringing. And when you're able to position yourself, you build trust faster, because if they're going to refer to you, they need to trust you. And it gives them some clarity as to the referrals that will matter to you. All right, second question. This was a really good one, and people might not think of it as it comes to positioning, but this comes up all the time, neutrality. For ADR professionals, neutrality is one of our most important factors, yet it can be very difficult to establish, especially when you are a practitioner who has come from an aligned practice. So if you've been an advocate for years, you represented plaintiffs in personal injury cases for 30 years, it can be really hard to transition into being a neutral mediator when everyone in the world out there knows that you were representing the injured party for the past 30 years and were really good at it. Some defendants counsel might not think you're the best choice for them. So how do you establish that neutrality? And part of it starts with your process. So I've been talking about how you do your elevator pitch, but everything you do with clients is a part of your pitch, is a part of establishing who you are, your value, and what you bring to your practice. So neutrality, understand, is part of your brand. If you're a dispute resolution professional out there, neutrality is a part of the brand. And that may be a big shift from a prior practice if you were in one. So when it comes to best practices for screening clients and maintaining that neutrality, a few tips on this for best practices are be very standardized in your intake process so that every party that is being taken in has exactly the same experience. And if you don't know whether you have a neutral intake process or you've transitioned an intake process from your litigation practice over to your mediation practice, I can tell you it's probably not neutral and it needs to be neutralized. Or if you want to test it, here's one of my big AI tips, because there were a lot of AI questions. And, I do entire day-long workshops on AI, so I can only sprinkle so much of it in here. But here's a really good way to use AI for those of you who want to soft pedal it. Take your intake forms or questionnaires or speech or however part, your onboarding process, your intake process, feed it into one of our friends, ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, whomever, and tell them that you want to neutralize your intake process. You want it to evaluate your intake process for neutrality and make recommendations for neutralizing the content. It's a great way to get a high view level of it and start making changes. You also want to, when you're doing your intake, only gather procedural and logistical information until everyone is engaged. You don't want to start doing that big, long, tell me all about your life and what's going on and what your positions are and what your interests are until as part of, just the general intake. You want everybody involved before you do that. The example I always give is, as a divorce mediator, I would often get a call 95% of the time, and it would just be one of the people interested in getting a divorce. And they would want to get me on the phone and tell me everything that had gone on in their marriage and their divorce and everything that they said in the next 2 hours where I was just listening and taking notes. And then lo and behold, they'd then go to their spouse and say, hey, I talked to this great mediator and, she'd really like to talk to you, or you should talk to her. And they're like, well, when did you talk to her? What did you say to her? And they hear that I've now heard their entire, life story of the one spouse. They don't want to come talk to me. They don't think I'm neutral. You already heard what Mary had to say. Why are you going to listen to me? So I wouldn't let Mary tell me everything. I would explain to Mary why it's a really good practice not to tell me everything, because I want to maintain my neutrality for both of them so that her spouse will not feel that I've lost my neutrality. So certainly there will be time in the process where I will hear all of that. But at this stage, it's better that we keep this to procedural and logistical information. And that's for her benefit and her spouse's benefit. So you want a neutral intake. That is one of the keys to keeping neutrality part of your brand. Part of why I talk about a lot of these things too, is I point out and I give examples, is we often do things because they're the way we've always done things, even when it was a different type of practice that we've now segued into a new profession or practice. And we don't even realize that what we did here doesn't work so well in this new realm. And so part of what I just try to do is bring a little awareness that there needs to be a shift a lot of times in how we approach these things. But neutrality is a key. So I loved this question. If you're out there and you gave it, thank you. I'm delighted to have it. All right. So that's as far as we're going to go with positioning. But remember, entire worksheet to walk you through this. But now you have a high level understanding of positioning. I'm going to go through pricing. I'm going to start moving faster because I'm realizing this is going to take too long and I'm not going to get through everything. So let's talk about pricing. Pricing is the structure and clarity of your fees. They should be designed to reflect your expertise, deliver predictability, which is the number one thing hourly fees do not provide, and create sustainable revenue for you. Don't think I'm ever forgetting that we want to make some money doing this. Bottom line is, what are you worth? just share a quick note. When Woody Mostyn and I used to do our divorce mediation training, the 10-day, 40-hour, there was always on day like 7 or 8 when we'd start talking about how to price your services and we'd start talking to people. And there was always that time where we'd hear someone in the crowd say, well, I charged $695 as a divorce attorney, so I'm going to charge $695 as a divorce mediator. And Woody would always look them in the eye on screen and say, oh, you can't do that. You're not worth it. And the looks on the faces, oh my goodness. But he's not wrong in most cases. He was not wrong in most cases. It's just hard to understand, right? But that's someone pricing themselves based upon an entirely different field, an entirely different level of expertise, and an entirely different level of understanding of what the client was looking for. Were they worth it? Probably not. They didn't have the expertise. They may have understood the law, but were they a mediator for 30 years? No, they had been a family law practitioner for 30 years. So this is about pricing yourself where you are in your practice. And that should immediately tell you this is something that changes over time. You don't set your prices and they stay the same, but you also don't set them willy-nilly based upon what everybody else is charging, because you are unique for your positioning. You should be pricing for your positioning. That's what you're worth. So pricing equals value and predictability. The billable hour has always created a situation where our clients distrust us. What is the number one currency we have with our clients as dispute resolution professionals? Trust. They come to us and they trust us to handle their matter. And most of us don't get to start creating that trust until we get in the room with them. But when we have them sign an agreement that says, I'm going to charge you some unknown, mystical amount of money based upon how many hours I spend on your matter, that you're not going to have any actual visibility in other than the time that you actually see me working on it, but there's going to be plenty of other time where you don't see me working on it. And there's no predictability to it. Anybody had done a mediation intake or a consultation, and someone said, "How much is this going to cost?" And the bottom line is, I have no idea. It depends on you. Depends on how much time you need. We can't know that right now. So value plus predictability. If you want to maintain your brand of trust, you need to give your client some predictability. So it's not just about numbers. It's how you communicate your value. Right? It's not, I based it on what everyone else charges. I based it on what I'm worth. I based it on the value you're getting from me. I use this, anybody know Jeff Kitchaven out there? One of our mediation colleagues out in California. Jeff, and he knows I say this, I've told him when I've seen him at conferences and things that I use him as an example. He just posted on LinkedIn not long ago that he was raising his daily mediation rate to $15,000 a day. He was completely unapologetic about charging $15,000 a day. He put it on LinkedIn. He wrote a whole post about it. Bravo to him. He knows his value and he put it out there. You shouldn't be apologetic about your value. You've worked to establish it. The right pricing structure creates trust with your clients. It reduces their stress, and that helps you build sustainable income. My clients who have shifted to innovative fee structures, I'm not going to say it's all flat fees. There's all different kinds of ways to price what we do, but they actually have a more sustainable, more knowable, and higher in most cases income once they start, and they have more time, by the way, because now they're not having to track their hours. And it gives some clarity, which equals confidence for both you in your practice as a business person and for your clients. Now, where are the biggest mistakes made? That hourly billing. It rewards inefficiency. The more inefficient you are, the more money you make. Clients know that. Underpricing. I just sat with some new clients the other day and they're getting ready to switch to sort of a modified flat fee structure. But when I saw their list of their fees, I know them, I know their practice. They were charging a fee that was really low because they were afraid to scare anybody off. I don't know. When you guys go out and you're looking to buy something, is there, like, you see 3 different prices: really inexpensive, sort of a mid-level and super expensive. Don't you always wonder what the super expensive one brings to the table that makes it worth being super expensive? And when you see something that's super valued very low, do you wonder if you're going to get what you actually need with that? So somewhere between the middle and the high is usually the right place. They overcomplicate it. The simpler you can make your fee structure, the better for the clients because they get that certainty, and the better for you. And then avoidance. We don't like talking about money, so we don't. We're embarrassed about it. We don't want to convey our value. Well, that just creates more distrust and misalignment. I always tell my clients, put your fees right on your website. Make it easy for people to understand. So how do you do pricing right? You align your pricing with their outcomes and your value, not your time. You offer clear and transparent options, things like flat fees packages or subscription models. I'm not saying there's one size fits all. There's a balance here of creating predictability while also protecting your income. So you might have to have fees starting at, or very clear scope of what's included in a package or included in a flat fee so that there's no scope creep, which is what gets you, right? And then back to what I said before, this is test and refine. This isn't a set it and forget it Ronco situation. This is a test it and refine it as you learn. As your client feedback comes in, we should all be getting feedback. And your capacity. The more you start attracting the better clients, it's better to take more of those than the ones where you'll take anything just to fill the calendar. And you have to, as you set your pricing, be able to present it confidently, why you're worth that, and why that's a value and a positive for them. All right, the questions. What are the best billing practices and setup? And I'm not sure I 100% set this out, but I will just say this applies to what I've been just saying. You want clarity before complexity. You want some clarity, simple, transparent pricing builds trust. Take every opportunity that you have as establishing a relationship with your clients to build trust, not erode it. You want to move away from the default hourly billing. I'm not saying that will go away completely, but it is, one thing people don't know is hourly billing's really only been around for just over 100 years or so. Guess what we did as a profession before hourly billing came about? We did flat fees. We did retainers that just kept us, which is basically like a subscription, not retainers where we're trying to make sure you pay me up front so you can't cheat me, which is what the legal profession does now. And we worked based on value. And then we established this hourly billing, which works for the profession, except that it doesn't help build trust and client relationships. So using clear written scopes so your clients know what's included and what is not, and then having a default of if it goes over the scope, it's going to be billed this way. And again, presenting it confidently. What's the best way to generate revenue in 2026? I'm going to give this one the award for God, I wish I knew the answer and could convey it to you in a lunch and learn. But I will say that the best way to generate revenue is to focus on what you actually do that makes money and package your services where appropriate, because again, that predictability keeps people coming back. 2 other tips that are not necessarily with billing, but I want you to be aware of. Get some systems and tools in place, use AI, use automation, get the friction points down, make it easy for you to run your practice, my solopreneurs out there. Take the grunt work away, have technology do it for you, get a cheap assistant, virtual assistant to do the things that you're not doing so that you can be more focused on the money-making hours and time. And then the other thing, and I mentioned this because again, AI was one of the questions, AI and technology are revolutionizing the legal and dispute resolution worlds, although we are the slowest to adopt it because we are risk adverse and are worried about it for good and bad reasons. Totally different presentation here. But whose life and business and work it's really changing? All our clients. The world that our clients work in is vastly changing because of artificial intelligence and other technologies. And you know what that means is new conflicts and new legal areas are coming up that are directly tied to artificial intelligence applications and technology applications in your clients' worlds. So if you do health law mediations, guess what? Health law is rampant with AI and legal issues that are arising from it. So what I will tell you is identify those areas and become an expert. Find out about them. Learn what you can learn about them and become the go-to person. Add that to your niche, add that to your value. Be the guy or gal who knows how to handle those. The family law, it's all about creating the videos and the deep fakes. That's all out there. Get on top of that and be the person who can manage that, or at least know the law around that. Get on top of the emerging fields that are coming because of these changes. All right. Promotion, because I want to get through this. Sorry, guys. But promotion, because this is marketing. Promotion is those consistent strategies that you use to stay visible, share your message, and attract clients who are aligned with your services, not the smattering of everything. You have to make them want you. And holding up a little sign like this, it's not the way to do it, right? She's not going to actually get the clients. So what are the strategies that will bring the clients you want to you? And that's being visible and consistent, because you can't be visible once and expect that everyone who might want to hire you will see you. So that means you've got to get out there and do this all the time. And promotion or marketing is how you stay top of mind with the right clients so that when they do need you, they reach out to you. So it's not about being loud. It's about showing up with a clear value proposition, what you can do for them, and that they hear that often enough. They say it takes 7 touches, right? That they hear that often enough that when they do need you, you're there and top of mind. And that visibility, here's the thing about thought leadership and what I'm going to say here, as I talked about this earlier, trust is the most important value we can bring to the table. Clients who trust their neutral are more inclined to hire that neutral. But why would they trust you? They don't know you if they haven't used you before. If they've used you, you've got that opportunity to build up trust. But how do you build trust before they've ever worked with you? It's your thought leadership and your promotion that can do that. That's how you can do this. So your visibility to them can build that trust long before they ever know they need you. They already have a reason to trust you because you've established yourself as an expert in something they need. So the biggest mistakes we make with promotion, and where most professionals go wrong, is they rely only on one bucket, one stream, one funnel for how those clients are going to come in. The referrals. Well, I'm going to a lot of bar association meetings. I'm shaking a lot of hands. I'm telling people I'm a new mediator in the area and I want business, but that's not coming in, right? That's relying on one funnel, and that's not going to be sufficient to do it. Plus, are you making sure you're getting your value across to them? The spaghetti approach for marketing, which is what most people are doing. Let me know if this sounds familiar to any of you. You post sporadically, you put out a blog here and there, you go on a podcast once every 6 months, and you're not quite sure what you're talking about. You'll talk about whatever that podcast host asks you to talk about, right? That's the spaghetti approach. There's no strategy to that. You're not attracting your people. You're just putting content out there and expecting it to bring you what you think you want, if you even know what you want. The opera approach. Me, 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 me. I can't sing, but the me, me, me approach. Also advertising, right? The people who put out posts on LinkedIn that look like the billboards I see as I drive down to Florida. You know, injured in an accident? Hire the hammer. That's one of them. I see that guy every time, the hammer. I think he's in Indiana. And I remembered if I were a personal injury and I needed somebody, maybe that would work. But you need to be talking about what the client's looking for, not who you are. And trying to do too much in marketing, spreading yourself too thin. All right, so how to do it right. Share insights that educate. This is thought leadership. Education and adding value to the people you want to reach, write about topics, give out information, share value on the topics that your target audience wants to hear about. So if you're trying to attract referrals, put out information as to why it's a valuable thing for attorneys to bring their mediations to you. What do they get from it? Not what necessarily their clients get from it, because as much as we would like to think attorneys pick their mediators for the value it brings to their clients, they pick the mediators for the value it brings to their practice. Why should they be coming to you? Vice versa, if you're trying to attract the B2C, talk about the value you bring to your B2C. Tell stories that show real impact. You've noticed maybe I've peppered real stories throughout this program. It brings an idea of what you're actually talking about to the people. Show real value and impact by sharing stories. Focus on your niche so that you become the go-to expert. So if you're going to become the go-to expert on deep fakes in family law, write about it a lot. Give programs on it. Go on podcasts and talk about it. Give top tips on how to tell if something is a deep fake. Get out there and let people know you're the go-to person on that topic. And then don't do it once, repurpose your content over and over and over again on different platforms. Put it out on LinkedIn as a post, put it out as an article, put it out as a blog, put it out as a top 5 tips, put it on your website, do it in a free FAQ. Endless possibilities with one type of content. Don't waste your time repositioning. And then lead with service. Trust drives clients and opportunities. So put out valuable information. People are like, well, no, I got to keep it all a secret. I just want to tell them I'm an expert. You express your expertise by sharing it with people, right? Just quickly, these last 3 questions. I promise I'll be done in 1 second. How do you grow a niche market? A niche market grows through focus, not volume. You bring in the people who are impacted by your particular niche. So it goes back to your positioning, right? Knowing who you are and the value you bring, and then promoting yourself in that niche. That's how you grow a niche market. You show you know and understand your niche market, and you have your expertise. And what actions would you take in the first 3 months of the year to increase visibility, name recognition, and those are things that actually lead to increased bookings? Focus on your promotion. Focus on your marketing. Hone in. If you do none of the other worksheets, do the promotion worksheet that I've left for you in the materials, because that is the one that is going to help you hone in on a marketing strategy for your year. Now, I will tell you that marketing strategy is going to be much, much better if you do your positioning and your pricing work as well. If you haven't done your positioning, how good is your marketing of that position, of that brand going to be? So they really all go together to bring it all together for you. So the 3 quick takeaways: clarity creates momentum, confidence drives profit, and consistency builds trust. Here's how you can get your homework. Those are the worksheets. Not coincidentally, the first 3 books in my practice playbook series are on these topics. If you want more, on my website. And please connect with me on LinkedIn if I can be helpful, or if you just want to see more content on this. I'm sorry I went over, but I wanted to make sure we got through all of this for you. But please do. If you have questions, I know we don't have time to go over more now. I'm sorry, I'm trying to take down the slides so we can see each other, and my screen is bouncing around on me. There we go. Zoom is causing me some problems. But I love answering questions for people. I love to be helpful. So if there's something that I can do to be of help to you, please feel free to reach out. Susan at Susan E. Guthrie. So I hope that will get you all started. I wish you all a wonderful practice in 2026. The more we support each other, the better we all do, the better dispute resolution does. And I truly believe the better dispute resolution does, the better the world will be. We need more peacemakers in the world, and that's who we are. Let's end conflict or help people resolve their conflict. So thank you so much, everybody.
That was absolutely amazing, Susan. Thank you so much for taking time from your busy schedule and sharing your expertise with us. As my mom used to always say, a rising tide lifts all boats. So
Mom's
for sure,
a smart lady.
Yep. We all learn from each other. I'm just going to do a quick little comment so that everybody knows where to find this. Once again, this has been recorded. You can find it on the ADR Sections YouTube channel. Coming up, we have our free monthly mediation forum that takes place on the first Friday of every month at 8 a.m. on Zoom. We have a free monthly arbitrator forum. That forum takes place on the second Tuesday of every month. The Lunch and Learn series in collaboration with the Florida Dispute Resolution Center will be on the second Friday of each month at noon through July of 2026. Please join Florida mediators and arbitrators for the series on Zoom to provide insight, skill building, and education for neutrals. Just know that attendance is limited to the first 250 attendees. So when you see that registration link come up, just like this one, you're going to want to sign up as soon as possible. We also have a program on client-centered mediation on January 21st and a lot of other CLEs coming up. So please check out our website and you can find all of this at FLABARADR.com, FloridaBarADR.com. And once again, Susan, thank you so much. I don't know that we have time. I know we're over time. And if anybody has any questions, Susan gave you her email. Susan, do you mind dropping that into the chat?
Absolutely. Let me just get here. Yep, absolutely happy to answer questions. As I said, I know that's a lot of information in a short period of time. But remember, high level, the worksheets are the gold here. The worksheets are the gold. I want you to have something you can do when you leave this screen.
Thank you. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.